Hey everyone, it's Mari here for Honeybee Stamps. I'm going to start off my card project today here by doing some really simple ink blending. I'm starting off with a piece of white cardstock. This is trimmed to an A2 size, and I'm using my blending brush here and just blending on some distress ink. I'm starting off with peacock feathers, and I'll also be blending some evergreen bough over top of that. And so I'm just going to continue to blend in here from the side onto my card panel, just trying to create some really nice, light, but totally blotchy looking background. And that's really what I wanted this to be, just to give that little bit of a textured look. So I wasn't going for a nice, even, smooth blend here. I want it to look a little bit blotchy, like I said, and I just find that that adds a little bit of depth and interest to the background for my project. Now here's that evergreen bough going over top. So again, just blending on over that peacock feathers, just coming in from the side and just really roughly blending on. And you can just see how blotchy that looks and kind of grungy looking it is. I think it just looks kind of cool. And just going to deepen that peacock feathers a little bit as well. And when I'm happy with the saturation of the ink that I've got here of these two colors together, I'm going to be finished with the ink blending. So when I'm done with that part, I am going to just take my Distress ink water bottle, or I should say my Distress water bottle, and I'll just spritz the panel with a little bit of water, and I'll sop up the excess water with my paper towel, and that's just going to add those water droplets. Now I'm just going to take my Be Shimmery watercolor and sprinkle that over top, and it's just going to create this really interesting background that's got some depth and dimension and shimmer and shine. And I'm going to trim this down so that it's 4 inches by 5 1/4, so that I'm going to have a nice white margin around the edge of my card front. I'm also going to be using the Lovely Layers Greenery dies. I'm just going to be using this one die here from the set, and I'm going to use that to trim out a couple of pieces from the edge of my paper. Now this was totally inspired by Jennifer McGuire. I saw her do something very similar to this on a recent video, and I just thought it was such a cool technique, and I wanted to try it today for my project. So I'm going to take my die and die cut out 2 areas with this Greenery die, and in that way create some openings to create some thicker sort of dimensional parts on my project. So you can see I've got those 2 cut away there. What I'm going to do now is go ahead and adhere this down to my A2 size card base. So I'm just using my Honeybee Stamps liquid glue here. I'll just go ahead and add this onto the back of my card panel and add this onto my A2 size top folding card base. And I'm just going to make sure that I have the adhesive kind of in all of those different little areas where that die cut piece has been released from the main part of the panel. So I'm just getting a little tiny drop of glue in all of those little areas there. And sorry, I'm just off out of frame here a little bit, but I'll just show you there where this glue is going, just making sure that all of these different little areas are going to be secured down to my card base. And once I'm finished with that, I'll flip this over and get that adhered down. I'll give it a really good press so that it's in the right spot and all adhered well, so that I can move on to the next step. So you can just see here, I'll just very carefully place that onto the card base. I want to make sure that it is centered on there before I commit to really giving it a good press down. And once I have it in the right spot, I'll just make sure that it gets adhered well onto that area, like so. So that part's all finished. Now what I'm going to do is I have die cut out that same die cut from the Lovely Layers Greenery. I've die cut that out another, I believe, 6 times from white cardstock. So I'm going to use 3 of those pieces and layer them together in this white opening. So I'm going to adhere that into that open space there, but just by adding a little bit of the liquid adhesive first, and then I'll just go ahead and add that die cut piece in there. So I'm just going to add that in, give that a little press, and then I'm going to add 2 more of those on top of that. And that's just going to make that really, really nice and dimensional. And I'm going to do the exact same thing with the other opening as well. And I have sped this up so that you don't have to watch this in real time because it's pretty boring. But I'm just adding that liquid adhesive again to each one of these pieces to add in there. Now I am going to show you this when I'm finished this, but one of the things that Jennifer did in her video was she added the ink blended die cut piece over top of the white when she was finished. And I really liked that. I thought it was very cool, and it looks really cool because it matches, right? The color, the ink blended piece matches perfectly with the area that you've cut it out of. But I really liked the contrast too of the white with the ink blended background. So I decided not to use those pieces to cover up these white areas. But like I said, I'll show you that when this is all put together so that you can visualize exactly what I mean here. But okay, so that's all of those pieces put in, super dimensional. Looks really cool. I don't know if you can really tell on camera, but it's pretty neat. Now this is the Thinking of You Big Time stamp set from Honeybee. There is a coordinating die set with this as well. I'm going to use that for my sentiment today. I'm going to do some heat embossing. And so I've treated my paper with my anti-static powder tool, and now I'm going to stamp out the sentiment with my clear embossing ink from Honeybee. This is the Be Creative Clear ink pad. So I've inked that up and stamped that out. Now I'm going to cover that sentiment with some embossing powder. And I think this one is called, actually I've still got it on my desk here. This one is Metallic Platinum. So it's a kind of a platinum gold, or I guess just platinum. And I'm heating it here to melt it now that I've got that all covered with my embossing powder. You can see how nice that is. I'm going to use the coordinating die to cut that out. And then I've also cut out that using the same die from teal cardstock and a couple from white. And I'm going to layer these three pieces all together. And this is going to help me create a really dimensional sentiment for the front of my card. So I'm going to add the heat embossed piece onto that teal. And I'm just going to offset it a little bit so that you can just slightly see that teal. And in that way, that's going to kind of coordinate nicely with my ink blended background. So I'm just going to get that on there. And then I will add some liquid adhesive to the back of this and get that adhered onto my card front. So there's not a lot of detail on this card. It's really clean and simple, but I think it's really effective. I love that foliage coming in from the side that's white, the really pretty distressed background with the ink blending, and then this really gorgeous sentiment that is really nice and big and just pops off of the card. And I love those big sentiments from Honeybee for that reason. I just feel like they just really pack a great punch for the front of your card. Now I've put down a bunch of little dots of adhesive here on my project, and I'm going to just add some really sparkly little sequins on there. And I'm going to put a ton of these on. I'll show you when it's all finished, and I won't show you that entire process, but it takes me a little bit of time. I think that's really pretty. And I'm just going to show you here, these are the two die cut pieces that I didn't use. I could have laid those over top there, but you can just see how nice that the white foliage is too. So that's why I saved those. And you can also add these to the inside of your card if you wanted. They're super pretty pieces. So I won't be tossing those out. I'll be saving those. I can't decide whether or not I'll put them on the inside of this card or save them for another project. Thanks so much for joining me today, friends. I hope you enjoyed this. All of the products that I've used for this project are listed below. Bye-bye.